Here's something that almost nobody talks about honestly. Right now, millions of people across America are waking up every single month, writing a check or setting up an automatic payment for their biggest monthly expense, and walking away from that transaction with absolutely nothing to show for it. No equity, no ownership, no asset, just another month of someone else's mortgage paid off with their money. And the uncomfortable part is not that renting exists or that people choose it. It's that most people who rent have never actually sat down and calculated what that decision costs them over 10, 15, or 20 years. Not the monthly number, the total number. Because when you run that math clearly, what looks like a reasonable monthly expense starts to look like one of the most expensive financial decisions most people make without ever realizing they made it. Let's start with the basic math, because the basic math alone is worth understanding. The median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the United States right now sits at roughly $1,400 to $1,700 per month depending on the city, and in major metropolitan areas, it runs significantly higher than that. Take a conservative number, $1,500 per month, and multiply it out over 10 years. That's $180,000 sent to a landlord over a decade. And at the end of those 10 years, you own exactly 0% of the building you have been living in and funding. The landlord, meanwhile, has had their mortgage partially or fully paid down by your rent payments, has likely seen the property appreciate in value, and has been building equity in an asset every single month while you have been building none. Now, here is where it gets more interesting, because the raw dollar amount is only part of the story. Every dollar you spend on rent is a dollar that is not building equity in an asset that appreciates over time. The average home in the United States has historically appreciated at roughly 3 to 4% per year over long periods, which means that a home purchased for $300,000 is worth on average somewhere around $430,000 10 years later, a gain of $130,000 simply from holding the asset. The renter in that same 10-year period has spent $180,000 on housing and captured zero of that appreciation. The homeowner has spent money on a mortgage, but has simultaneously been building equity and benefiting from appreciation, which means their true housing cost, when you net out what they gained, is dramatically lower than the sticker price of their monthly payment. There's a counter-argument that comes up almost every time this topic gets discussed, and it's worth addressing directly because it contains a real point. People say that renting is not always about financial decision, that in expensive markets, the cost of buying is so high that renting and investing the difference can actually produce better outcomes than owning. This is true in specific circumstances. The math does support it in certain high cost of living cities where home prices are so elevated relative to rents that the numbers genuinely favor renting. But here's the problem with that argument in practice. The key phrase is investing the difference, and studies consistently show that the vast majority of renters do not invest the difference, they spend it, which means the theoretical financial advantage of renting over buying in expensive markets almost never materializes in real life, because the discipline required to actually capture it is something most people don't maintain over a 10 or 15-year period. The deeper trap of renting, though, is not just financial, it's psychological, and it operates in a way that most people never examine. Rent is permanent and rising. In most American cities, rent increases every single year between 3 and 5% annually on average, and significantly more in high-demand markets. This means that the person renting at $1,500 today will likely be paying $2,000 or more for the same apartment in 5 years, with no control over that increase and no option to lock in their housing cost. The homeowner with a fixed-rate mortgage, by contrast, has locked in their principal and interest payment for 30 years. While their property taxes and insurance will rise modestly, their core housing cost is fixed, which means that as inflation pushes everything else up over time, their mortgage payment stays the same, and the real cost of their housing actually decreases in inflation-adjusted terms every single year they hold it. This asymmetry, rising rent versus fixed mortgage, has a compounding effect on financial outcomes over a working lifetime that is almost impossible to overstate. The person who bought a home in their late 20s or early 30s and held it through their 50s has typically seen their housing cost become a smaller and smaller percentage of their income over time, as their earnings grew and their payment stayed flat. The person who rented through the same period has typically seen their housing cost grow faster than their income, consuming an ever larger share of their monthly budget, and leaving less and less available for saving and investing. After 30 years, these two financial trajectories can look almost nothing alike. Not because one person earned dramatically more than the other, but because one of them had a fixed and appreciating asset working in their favor, while the other was funding someone else's. None of this means that buying a home is the right decision for every person in every circumstance. Timing matters, location matters, life stability matters, and there are real situations where renting makes more sense than buying in the short term. But what most people never do is approach this decision with the full financial picture clearly in view. They think about it month by month, comparing a rent payment to a mortgage payment, without accounting for equity, appreciation, rent inflation over time, and the compounding opportunity cost of spending versus building an asset. When you lay all of those variables out together and run the numbers over a realistic time horizon, the picture is almost always more expensive for the long-term renter than it appeared when they were just looking at the monthly number. The rent trap is a trap because renting is not inherently wrong. It's a trap because most people stay in it longer than they intended to, spend more than they realize over the full period, and arrive at middle age with nothing to show for decades of housing payments, while their peers who bought have an asset worth several times what they paid for it. Understanding this clearly does not automatically make home ownership accessible. There are real barriers around down payments and credit and market availability that are not solved simply by understanding the math. But understanding the math is the starting point, because you cannot make a genuinely informed decision about one of the biggest financial commitments of your life without seeing what it actually costs across the full timeline. If this is the kind of financial clarity you want every week, hit subscribe, because this is exactly what this channel exists to provide.